Okay, so moving on from where we got yesterday. Recap back. We finished the last chapter with Badger and Fox hitting something that they found out to be a wall. Before you start reading today, what do you think the wall is that they've hit whilst digging? Have a little think about it. Tell someone in your house, make a prediction. What do you think that might be? A wall under the ground. Have a think about it. Tuesday the 28th of April today. We're going to be reading chapter 15 and chapter 16. As always, pause when a new page comes on and then try and read yourself if you can. If not, read along with me. Okay. Chapter 15, Bean's Secret Cider Cellar. Mr. Fox examined the wall carefully. He saw that the cement between the bricks was old and crumbly, so he loosened a brick without much trouble and pulled it away. Suddenly, out of the hole where the brick had been, there popped a small, sharp face with whiskers. "Go away," it snapped. "You can't come in here. It's private." "Good Lord," said Badger. "It's Rat." "You saucy beast," said Mr. Fox. "I should have guessed we'd find you down here somewhere." "Go away," shrieked Rat. "Go on, beat it. This is my private pitch." "Shut up," said Mr. Fox. "I will not shut up," shrieked Rat. "This is my place. I got here first." Mr. Fox gave a brilliant smile, flashing his white teeth. "My dear Rat," he said softly, "I am a hungry fellow, and if you don't hop it quickly, I shall eat you up in one gulp." That did it. Rat popped back fast out of sight. Mr. Fox laughed and began pulling more bricks out of the wall. When he had made a biggish hole, he crept through it. Badger and the smallest fox followed him. They found themselves in a vast, damp, gloomy cellar. "This is it," cried Mr. Fox. "This is what?" said Badger. "The place is empty." "Where are the turkeys?" asked the smallest fox, staring into the gloom. "I thought Bean was a turkey man." "He is a turkey man," said Mr. Fox. "But we're not after turkeys now. We've got plenty of food." "Then what do we need, Dad?" "Take a good look around," said Mr. Fox. "Don't you see anything that interests you?" Badger and the smallest fox peered into the half-darkness. As their eyes became accustomed to the gloom, they began to see what looked like a whole lot of big glass jars standing upon shelves around the walls. They went closer. They were jars. There were hundreds of them, and upon each one was written the word cider. The smallest fox leaped high in the air. "Oh, Dad," he cried out, "look what we found! It's cider!" "Exactly," said Mr. Fox. "Tremendous!" shouted Badger. "Bean's secret cider cellar," said Mr. Fox. "But go carefully, my dears. Don't make a noise. This cellar is right underneath the farmhouse itself." "Cider," said Badger, "is especially good for badgers. We take it as medicine. One large glass 3 times a day with meals and another at bedtime." "It will make the feast into a banquet," said Mr. Fox. While they were talking, the smallest fox had sneaked a jar off the shelves and had taken a gulp. "Whoa," he gasped. "Wowee." You must understand that this was not the ordinary weak fizzy cider one buys in a store. It was the real stuff, a home-brewed fiery liquor that burned in your throat and boiled in your stomach. "Ah," gasped the smallest fox. "This is some cider." "That's quite enough of that," said Mr. Fox, grabbing the jar and putting it to his own lips. He took a tremendous gulp. "It's miraculous," he whispered, fighting for breath. "It's fabulous. It's beautiful." "It's my turn," said Badger, taking the jar and tilting his head well back. The cider gurgled and bubbled down his throat. It's like melted gold," he gasped. "Oh, Foxy, it's like drinking sunbeams and rainbows." "You're poaching," shrieked Rat. "Put that down at once. There'll be none left for me." Rat was perched upon the highest shelf in the cellar, peering out from behind a huge jar. There was a small rubber tube inserted in the neck of the jar, and Rat was using this tube to suck out the cider. "You're drunk," said Mr. Fox. "Mind your own business," shrieked Rat. "And if you great clumsy brutes come messing about in here, we'll all be caught. Get out and leave me to sip my cider in peace." At that moment, they heard a woman's voice calling out in the house above them. "Hurry up and get that cider, Mabel," the voice called. "You know Mr. Bean doesn't like to be kept waiting, especially when he's been out all night in a tent." The animals froze. They stayed absolutely still. Their ears pricked, their bodies tense. Then they heard the sound of the door being opened. The door was at the top of a flight of stone steps leading down from the house to the cellar, and now someone was starting to come down those steps. Chapter 16. The Woman. "Quick," said Mr. Fox, "hide." He and Badger and the smallest fox jumped up onto a shelf and crouched behind a row of big cider jars. Peering around the jars, they saw a huge woman coming in to the cellar. At the foot of the steps, the woman paused, looking to right and left. Then she turned and headed straight for the place where Mr. Fox and Badger and the smallest fox were hiding. She stopped right in front of them. The only thing between her and them was a row of cider jars. She was so close, Mr. Fox could hear the sound of her breathing. Peeping through the crack between two bottles, he noticed that she carried a big rolling pin in one hand. "How many will you want this time, Mrs. Bean?" the woman shouted. And from the top of the steps the other voice called back, "Bring up 2 or 3 jars." "He drank 4 yesterday, Mrs. Bean." "Yes, but he won't want that many today because he's not going to be up there more than a few hours longer. He says the fox is bound to make a run for it this morning. It can't possibly stay down that hole another day without food." The woman in the cellar reached out and lifted a jar of cider from the shelf. The jar she took was next but one to the jar behind which Mr. Fox was crouching. "I'll be glad when the rotten brute is killed and strung up on the front porch," she called out. "And by the way, Mrs. Bean, your husband promised I could have the tail as a souvenir." "The tail's been shot all to pieces." "The tail's been all shot to pieces," said the voice from upstairs. "Didn't you know that?" "You mean it's ruined?" "Of course it's ruined. They shot the tail but missed the fox." "Oh, heck," said the big woman. "I did so want that tail." "You can have the head instead, Mabel. You can get it stuffed and hang it on your bedroom wall. Hurry up now with that cider." "Yes, ma'am, I'm coming," said the big woman. And she took a second jar off from the shelf. "If she takes one more, she'll see us," thought Mr. Fox. He could feel the smallest fox's body pressed tightly against his own, quivering with excitement. "Will 2 be enough, Mrs. Bean, or shall I take 3? "My goodness, Mabel, I don't care so long as you get a move on." "Then 2 it is," said the huge woman, speaking to herself now. "He drinks too much anyway." Carrying a jar in each hand and with the rolling pin tucked under one arm, she walked away across the cellar. At the foot of the steps, she paused and looked around, sniffing the air. "There's rats down here again, Mrs. Bean. I can smell 'em." "Then poison them, woman. Poison them. You know where the poison's kept." "Yes, ma'am," Mabel said. She climbed slowly out of sight up the steps. The door slammed. "Quick," said Mr. Fox. "Grab a jar each and run for it." Rats stood on his high shelf and shrieked. "What did I tell you? You nearly got nabbed, didn't you? You nearly gave the game away. You keep out of here from now on. I don't want you around. This is my place." "You," said Mr. Fox, "are going to be poisoned." "Poppycock," said Rat. "I sit up here and watch her putting the stuff down. She'll never get me." Mr. Fox and Badger and the smallest fox ran across the cellar, clutching a gallon jar each. "Goodbye, Rat," they called as they disappeared through the hole in the wall. "Thanks for the lovely cider." "Thieves!" shrieked Rat. "Robbers! Bandits! Burglars!" Okay, so your 5 quick fire questions are: Question 1. What did Fox threaten to do to Rat if he did not go away? What does the word accustomed mean on page 63? Do you think the smallest fox liked the cider? Why? Page 64, we'll use that for that. What does Badger liken the taste of cider to? You'll find that on page 65. And on page 69, what had been promised to the woman as a souvenir once the foxes had been killed? There are your sentence stems to make sure that you're answering in full sentences. Pause the video while you have a go. Okay, good job. Fox threatened to eat Rat up in one gulp if he did not go away. That was on page 62. The word accustomed means to get used to something. Okay. So they were getting accustomed to the dark. They were getting used to the dark. So when the light goes out, you can't see things straight away, but then your eyes get used to it and you're able to pick out shapes. The smallest fox did like the cider. He gasped when he drank it and said, "Wowee," which suggests that he liked and he enjoyed the taste. Question 4. Badger likens the taste of cider to melted gold, sunbeams and rainbows. That sounds delicious. And question 5. The woman had been promised the foxtail as a souvenir. But we all know, as Mrs. Bean told her, it had been shot off, hadn't it, already? Okay, question 6. How does Roald Dahl create suspense and fear in the last 2 paragraphs of chapter 15? Okay, so we'll have a little look at that in a minute. Think about how Badger felt when he first met Mr. Fox compared to how he feels now. Do you think this has changed? And why do you think it is? Okay. And question 8. If you could choose to be friends with one character from the book so far, who would you choose? Okay, think carefully about that one, and I want you to give me 3 answers. 3 reasons why you have chosen that person. So, question 6. How does Roald Dahl create suspense and fear in the last 2 paragraphs? So the last 2 paragraphs, you've got 1 there, and you've got 2 there. And that second paragraph is only a tiny paragraph, isn't it? But how does he create suspense and fear? Well, the animals froze. That gives you the impression that they are scared. Okay, so that fear comes through the vocabulary that Roald Dahl has chosen to use. Okay, they stayed absolutely still. Their ears pricked. Their bodies tense. Okay, so he's telling you, Roald Dahl is telling you exactly how the animals are standing. Okay, he's using those senses. Okay, so what they look like. Then they heard the sound of the door being opened. Okay, so that sound, it's really descriptive, isn't it? And it's building up that suspense. Another thing that adds to the suspense is this last paragraph. And now somebody was starting to come down those steps. Imagine if we had not read chapter 16. Let's cross that out. Imagine if we'd just read chapter 15 today and that wasn't there. And it said, and now someone was starting to come down those steps. That would leave it on what we'd call a cliffhanger. Okay? A cliffhanger means the author, or if you're watching a film or something, it builds up so much suspense that you really, really want to read on or you want to watch on to find out what happens. Roald Dahl's done that really well because he's told us that someone's starting to come down the steps. We know those animals should not be in that cellar, okay? So it makes us think, oh my goodness, what is going to happen to them? Question 7. Think about how Badger felt when he first met Mr. Fox compared to how he feels now. Okay. Do you think this has changed? And why do you think this is? So if we think back to the questions from yesterday, we were saying that Badger was a little bit worried, wasn't he, do you remember? Because he wasn't feeling, he felt like it was wrong. It felt like he was stealing stuff from the 3 farmers. But he seems to have changed in this chapter a little bit. Okay. You've got here, Mr. Fox and Badger and the smallest fox ran across the cellar clutching a gallon jar each. So the fact that they've got a jar each, it's that word each, it shows us that Badger is on board with this now. He is all for getting food and getting drink for his family. He believes in it and he doesn't feel bad about it. They're not stealing everything. They're stealing little bits or taking little bits to keep their family alive. Okay? So he has participated. He has got a gallon jar, of cider. Okay? And he's part of the team now. They called out. They ran and they called out. Goodbye, rat. Okay? So they're kind of working as a team. They're on the same page. You can see here as well. It's my turn, said Badger. So he's growing in confidence. He's not just seeing what Fox is doing and thinking, oh, it's wrong. He's actually joining in. Okay? He's saying it's like melted gold. Oh, Foxy, it's like drinking sunbeams and rainbows. He's understanding and he's seeing the benefits of being able to eat and being able to drink. Okay, so yesterday I think he was feeling quite, worried that what they were doing was wrong. Whereas today he's realised that it's actually quite beneficial. What they're doing is helping to save their families and their families' lives and their friends. And also it's quite delicious as well. And then your last question, if you could choose to be friends with one of the characters from the book so far, who would you choose? Okay, so you've got, let's just recap the characters. We've got Fox, we've got Mr. Fox, we've also got Mrs. Fox, we've got the the 4 Fox children, which we know about. We don't know that much about them. We know that they're very willing and they want, they listen to their dad's plans and they want to try and help. We've got the 3 farmers and we've also got Mr. Badger, haven't we? So you can choose one of those characters and you can tell me which one you would like to be friends with and why. 3 reasons why. Okay, can you email those over to us, guys, please? Thank you.
Hi guys, I hope you all found yesterday's Do It and Secure It okay. I'm just going to quickly go through the answers with you. If once I've done that you're still not sure where you've gone wrong, if you have gone wrong, please feel free to send me an email and I'm more than happy to go through it with you individually, okay? So, the first question was asking you to copy and complete and fill in the table. You needed to find the minutes and the hours. So, number 1, 1 hour and 40 minutes. So we've got our 60 minutes in our hour and then an extra 40 minutes. So we do 60 add 40. 0 add 0 is 0. 6 add 4 is 10. So hopefully you've got for this one 100 minutes. Now the next one gave you the minutes but not the hours. So there was 15 minutes and you needed to find out the hours. Now we know that there are 60 minutes in an hour. So it definitely can't be 1 hour. Now, some of you might have done 60 divided by 15, which is great. That would have got you an idea of the answer. And others might have thought, oh, I'm really not sure what to do here, which again would have been fine. So, one way you could have thought of doing it was 60 divided by 15, or we talked about it yesterday. There are 30 minutes in half an hour, okay? Now we know that 15 is half of 30. So 15 is equal to a quarter of an hour. Okay? Just realised I've written that in and I've got it to come on. So 100 for that one and a quarter of an hour for that one. Because if you'd have done 60 divided by 15, it is equal to 4, which is the same as for this, a quarter. Okay, that one was a little bit tricky, but I'm hopeful that you got it. Okay, so for the next one, 2 hours and 10 minutes, we needed to work out 2 hours. So 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 6 is 12, and then we needed to add an extra 10 minutes on. So hopefully you've got that it was 130 minutes. Okay, the next one was giving you the minutes. So we'd got 170 minutes. So 170 take away 60 is 110. Take away another 60 is 50. So we've got 1 and 2 hours and 50 minutes. The final one was 3 hours and 20 minutes. So 60 minutes in 1 hour. We want to know 3 hours. So we do 60 times 3. 3 add 0 is 0. 3 times 6 is 18. So that's 180 minutes. but then we couldn't forget those 20 minutes, so we would add 20 to that, and hopefully you got that the answer was 200 minutes. Okay, guys, that was tricky. So if you got some of those right, or all of them right, well done you. That is awesome. Okay, and the second question, we needed to find out who had read the chapter of their book quicker. Was it Josh or Tom? So let's have a look at converting 300 seconds into minutes. So 300 divided by, let's divide it by 6 rather than 60 just for ease. So 6 is into 3s we can't do. 6 is into 30 or 5. 6 is into 0 or 0. We divide that by 10 because it's 60 not 6, and we get the answer 5 minutes, which meant that Tom read his chapter quicker. Hopefully you got that. All right, guys? Okay, those of you that had a go at the extra challenge on the Do It, the question was which children were quicker in week 1 than week 2? So for Barney, we could have converted seconds to minutes. So 180 divided by 60 is 3 minutes. So if in week 2 he did 3 minutes, week 1 he did 2 minutes 50 seconds, he was quicker in week 1. Okay, for Jibrail, we will do that 6 times 60 equals 360 seconds. So actually he was slower because in week 2 he got 275 seconds. And then for Tia, in week 1, 240 divided by 60 equals 4 minutes. And in week 2 she did 4 minutes and 5 seconds. So the answer was Barney and Tia. Okay, so for your secure it, we've got that Jonah says that he ran the race in 4 hours and 25 minutes and he thought that he might have won. And Ellen said she ran the race in 425 minutes and she thought she had won. So what I would have suggested that you did was convert Jonah's hours to minutes. So we've done 4 hours, so 4 times 60, which is 240 minutes. And then we add on that 25 to 265 minutes. So hopefully you worked out then that 265 minutes is less than 425 minutes. So Jonah is correct. So anything along those lines for your explanation would have been perfect. Okay, guys? So today our learning objective is to explore years, months, weeks and days. Okay, so let's get started. Okay guys, so we're going to do a bit of a what do you know. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You can either think of the answer or jot it down. I don't mind. So, how many days are there in a week? How many weeks are there in a year? How many days are there in a year? How many days are there in each month? Pause me while you think and then come back when you're ready. Okay, so hopefully everybody got that there are 7 days in the week. We've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. How many weeks in a year? You might not have known this, but the answer is 52. Okay? And how many days in a year? Now this is a bit of a trick question because usually there are 365 days. But if it is a leap year, like it is this year, we have 366 days because we get an extra day on February the 29th. We talked about that this year. Hopefully you remember. And finally, how many days are there in each month? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to the next slide and talk you through the trick that I always use to remember how many days there are in each month. Okay, so you might have heard of this trick before, but I'm going to go through it anyway. So, what I want you all to do is put your hand out like the hand on the screen. And I'd like you to point at the finger that I've got the arrow pointed to now. Okay, so that's January. Then we're going to go down into the ditch here. February. Back up for March. Back down for April. Back up for May. Down for June. Up for July. Okay, then you're going to go back to the first finger and do August, September, October, November, December. Now the trick is, if you say the month on your finger, that month has 31 days. if it's in the dip, that month has 30 days, unless it's February, which has 28 days. Okay? So have a go now, practice it on your first finger. So you've got 31 days in January, 28 days in February, 31 days in March, 30 days in April, 31 days in May, 30 days in June, 31 days in July, 31 days in August, 30 days in September, 31 days in October, 30 days in November, 31 days in December. Okay, keep practicing that, guys. That's the way I learned it. Hopefully that helps. Okay, guys, so similarly to what we did yesterday when we looked at how many seconds there were in a minute and then we converted it, we're going to do the same with days in a week. So we know that there are 7 days in 1 week. So how many days are in 2 weeks? Okay, have a think, come back when you're ready. Hopefully you realise all you need to do is 7 times 2, which is 14. So there are 14 days in 2 weeks. Right, guys, I'd like you to have a little go at these, either in your books or in your heads. So pause me while you're having a think and then come back. But what you need to do is you need to decide how many days are in January, how many months in half a year, and how many days there are in 5 weeks and 3 days, okay? Have a go, and then when you're ready, come back. Okay, let's start with January. So if you did the finger trick, you would know that the first finger we touch is January. So therefore, there must be 31 days. Okay? So there are how many months in half a year? So we know that there's 12 months in a year. So if we want half, we have to divide by 2. And half of 12 is 6. So again, I'm hopeful we all got 6 there. Now the last one, how many days in 5 weeks and 3 days? Now we know that there's 7 days in a week. So if we times 7 by 5, hopefully we all know that that's 35 because we're brilliant at our 5 times tables. And then we just need to add on 3 more. So the answer would be 38. Okay, guys. Okay, so I briefly mentioned earlier a leap year, but I just want to give you some quick facts about it, just in case you need it later and you'll do it. So a leap year is a year that has 366 days. February the 29th is the extra day of the year, and they occur every 4 years. Okay, so 2020, now that we're in, is a leap year. Can anyone guess when our next or work out when our next leap year is going to be? If you were thinking 2024, you would have been correct. Okay, guys, bit of a challenge for you. I'd like you to have a go at matching the durations. So on one side, we've got 28 days, 2 weeks, and 18 months. And on this side, we've got 14 days, 1.5 years, and 4 weeks. So which ones match which? Okay? Have a go and then come back when you're ready and I will show you the answers. Okay, so 28 days is the same as 4 weeks because 4 times 7 is 28. 2 weeks is the same as 14 days. 2 times 7 is 14. And 18 months because 1 year is 12 months. Half a year is 6 months. Add them together, it's 18. Okay, so you'll do it for today. You've got to find the missing numbers. So there are how many days in a fortnight, which is the same as 2 weeks. There are how many days in 3 weeks and 6 days. And there are how many months in 3 years. You've then got to decide which is the longest duration out of 3 weeks, 4 days, 2 months or 23 days, and then which has the shortest duration, 365 days, 1 year, 2 weeks, or 11 months. Okay, good luck. If you get through your do it really quick or you want a bit of an extra challenge, I've done an extra do it challenge for today. It says that Sally is 7 years and 2 months old. Macy is 85 months old. Who is the oldest? Explain your answer. So you're going to need to convert those 85 months into years or those years into months and then add on the 2 months. However you want to do it. Good luck. And finally for today, guys, you'll secure it. Zaya and Darnell are discussing the month June. There are 4 weeks and 3 days in June. And Darnell says there are 4 weeks and 2 days in June. Who is correct? Explain why. You might need to use your finger trick that we talked about earlier and a little bit of working out. Best of luck, guys. If you are stuck or there's something bothering you or anything about this, please send me an email so that we can sort it out and get you feeling happy. All right, I'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your writing for today. It's Tuesday the 28th of April. We're going to be starting our activities today like we did yesterday, trying to spot in those sentences verbs, nouns, adverbs and adjectives. So just take a second to read the screen. Remind yourselves what verbs and nouns are, because remember those are super important because they help us to find the adverbs and the adjectives as well. So nouns being naming things, and verbs being our actions, what is happening in the sentence. Okay, let's have a look at our sentences then for today. So we've got 3 sentences today. We're looking for the nouns, the adjectives, the verbs and the adverbs, and these are our sentences. So we've got Peter played the saxophone loudly in his old house. Muscles help humans to move easily. Eventually, the teacher called the noisy class to attention. So what I'd like you to do, please, is copy out the sentences in your book and label for me the nouns, the adjectives, the verbs and the adverbs in each sentence, okay? So take a moment to pause the video now and have a go at those. Fantastic, hope you all got on okay. Let's have a little look at the answers then. So let's go through them sentence by sentence. Remember, we're going to spot those nouns first, then the verbs, because the adjectives and the adverbs are linked to those, so it helps us to find those as well. So in that first sentence, Peter played the saxophone loudly in his old house. We've got 3 things named: Peter, saxophone and house. These are our nouns. Peter, saxophone, house are the names of things, okay? What is Peter doing in this sentence? Oh, he's playing, so our verb is played, okay? How did he play it is our adverb, so that's loudly. He played it loudly. And how are we describing the house? It's an old house, so old is our adjective in that sentence, okay? Let's have a look at the second sentence. Muscles help humans to move easily, okay? So we've named 2 things, muscles and humans. These are our nouns in these sentences. And what are those things doing in the sentence? Well, they're helping and they're moving. So we've got 2 verbs in this sentence. So this was a little bit more of a tricky one. There are no adjectives in this sentence, but we do have an adverb, so easily. So is it helping them easily or moving them easily? Well, it's moving them easily because it's next to that particular verb. So it's describing the movement. The movement is easy, okay? So that's our adverb in that sentence. And then finally, the third sentence, eventually the class teacher called the noisy class to attention. We've got lots and lots of nouns in this one. So we've got teacher and we've got class, which I think you all have all got. Attention is being a really clever one. If you spotted that was a noun, you've done very, very well, because it's the name of that move when you're calling everybody's attention your way. Okay, the verb being called, so the teacher called the class. We're describing that action as eventually. It took them a little bit of a long time to do it, so that's our adverb. Eventually they called them. And the class is noisy, so that's our description, so that's our adjective in this sentence as well. Hope you managed to get on okay with those. Make sure you mark them in your book if you managed to copy them out or have a think about them. And let's move on to our writing for today. Okay, so today we are going to be writing an adventure story, okay? And our adventure story is going to be based on the story of Fantastic Mr. Fox, which you've almost finished now in your reading lessons, okay? So my first job for you today is to have a little think about each of these different sentences. They are all the story of Fantastic Mr. Fox, but unfortunately they've all been jumbled up in the wrong order. So my question is, can you order them correctly to tell the story of Fantastic Mr. Fox? So there are 2 ways to do this. You can copy the sentences out in order, or if you're looking for something a little bit quicker, just use the letters on the side to put them in the correct order. So I'm going to read them through with you, and then we'll pause the video and you can have some time to order. So we've got Meet Mr. Fox, hero, and the mean farmers, villains. The farmers wait at the foxhole and the fox family begin to starve. The farmers are cross, so set a trap for Mr. Fox and shoot off his tail. The fox family and their friends feast underground while the farmers sit watching the foxhole. The farmers set another trap and try to dig out Mr. Fox and his family. Mr. Fox comes up with a plan to tunnel into the farmers' stores and save his family. Mr. Fox is upsetting the farmers by stealing their produce, that means their chickens and their apples, and Mr. Fox gets away and escapes underground. So what I want you to do is put that in the correct order for me. I'll give you the clue that it starts with A, so meeting Mr. Fox and the hero, who is the hero, and the farmers who are the villains. The rest of them are all out of order and you need to decide what order they go in. So pause the video now, write down your order and then come back to me and we'll go through the answers. Okay, hope you've managed to get those written down. Let's reveal those answers then. So let's see if you've got them right. So if you were doing the letters, the correct order was A, G, C, H, E, B, F and D. So let's just read through that story in order. If you were writing out the sentences, this is how it should read if you've got them correct. So first we meet Mr. Fox, the hero, and the mean farmers, the villains. Then Mr. Fox is upsetting the farmers by stealing their produce. So the farmers are cross and they decide to set a trap for Mr. Fox and shoot off his tail. But Mr. Fox gets away and he escapes underground. So then the farmers set another trap to dig out Mr. Fox and his family. The farmers wait by the foxhole and the family begin to starve. Mr. Fox comes up with a plan to tunnel into the farmers' stores and save his family. And then the Fox family and their friends have that big feast underground while the farmers are still sitting there looking a bit silly and watching the foxhole. So well done if you managed to get all of that in the correct order. That was a bit of a challenge this morning. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to think about the different parts of the story because we're going to use this story to help us plan our own adventure story. So first of all, we meet the characters and we find out the problem. So in this story, we meet the characters, Mr. Fox, and the villains, the farmers, and we find out the problem. So the problem is that the farmers don't want him stealing their produce. Okay, so that's the first part of our story. The second part of our story is that the villains, the bad guys, the farmers in our case, set a trap, but the hero is too clever and he escapes. So here we go, the farmers set the trap and shoot off his tail, but Mr. Fox manages to escape. So that's the second part of our story. Okay, the third part of our story is that the villains set another trap and the hero manages to escape again. So they try and dig out Mr. Fox in this story, don't they? But his family dig even faster and they manage to escape him that way. Then the hero has a problem. So the villains are winning a little bit. They're starting to starve. So Mr. Fox, our hero in our story, has to come up with a plan. So the farmers are waiting at the foxhole trying to starve the foxes. And then Mr. Fox has to come up with a plan to escape, so he tunnels under the stores and manages to save his family. The last part of our story here is that the hero wins and the villains look a little bit foolish, okay? So the hero wins, the Fox family is having a big feast underground, and the farmers look a bit silly because they're still watching the foxhole, even though the fox is more than happy staying underground for the rest of their lives. So that's the story. This is the structure here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that we're all going to use to plan our own stories this week. So let's have a little look how that might work. So I've planned a bit of a story that's very similar to this story that I'm going to write over the next few days. And I'm hoping that you're going to come up with today a plan to write your own story as well. So if I'm planning a story, I can draw it, or I can write a bit about it, or I can just talk to somebody about it. Whatever way works best for you. But in this one, I've decided to draw it because I thought that would work for me. So here is my story. So my hero is going to be a lark, which is a type of bird. It's going to have a lark family, and they're going to be brave, and they're going to be fearless. And my villain in this story is going to be Mrs. Bates, the farmer's wife. And she's going to have a constant scowl on her face. She's going to have a really grumpy face. And my problem is that the bird likes to eat the corn in the cornfields and the berries on the berry bush. And she's not going to be very happy about the fact that he keeps stealing all the food. Okay? So the second part of my story is where villains set a trap and the hero escapes. So I need my first trap. What's Mrs. Bates going to do to try and trap the lark? So Mrs. Bates, here she is, feeling a bit cross. So she thinks, I know, I'm going to put a scarecrow in the cornfield and that will stop the lark from eating the corn. So that's great. It does scare the lark off, but he's far too clever, so he goes to the berry bush and eats that instead. Okay, so the hero's still winning at that point. So then my villain's going to set another trap, and the hero's going to escape again. Okay, so Mrs. Bates is still a bit cross. She's very cross indeed. So she decides, right, so we're going to put a scarecrow in the cornfield, and I'm going to put a net over the berry bush. So that's absolutely fine. The lark says, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I going to eat and feed my family today? So he goes hunting off round the garden, and he sees there's a nice big slice of walnut cake that Mr. Bates has left on the table while he went to go and fetch his cup of tea. So he eats the cake instead. So the villain's still winning at this point. So then my hero is starving and he comes up with a plan. So now Mrs. Bates is very, very, very cross. So she decides what she's going to do is not put a net over the berry bush, but she's going to put a big net over Mr. Lark's tree with his nest in it. So now Mr. Lark and his family are stuck and they can't escape, and they're very, very scared because it says here, we're hungry. So you've got baby larks who are very hungry. So Mr. Lark's going to have to come up with a plan in order to get out from under this net. So what does he do to make himself win and the villains look foolish? So him and his family are going to peck a little hole in the net. Here's my net. Here's my tiny little hole. And every night when it's quiet, they're going to creep out, go and eat the corn, eat the berry bush, eat anything else that's left over. And every morning, Mrs. Bates is going to wake up super confused because she doesn't know who's stealing the food. Okay? So that's my story. Your job today is to do something very similar and come up with your own adventure story. Now, you can draw it, you can write it, or you can just talk about it. So here's your plan for your adventure story that you're going to use today. Try and think about what's going to happen at each of the different stages. What traps are they going to set? What's the problem going to be? I've put you some characters here that might help you. So you might want to do a story about a slug who's eating all the lettuces. You might want to do a story about a squirrel who's eating all the nuts, or perhaps a wolf who's eating the sheep. You might want to do something like Peter Rabbit, so he goes into the garden, doesn't he, all the time at Mr. McGregor's and steals the fruit and vegetables in the garden. So you could have a Peter Rabbit and Mr. McGregor story. Or if you've ever watched the film Inside Out, the little raccoons and things, they escape into the house next door, and they actually steal the food from inside the house. So you might want to choose one of those for your characters as well. Once you've got your character and your problem, you're going to think about what traps they're going to set and how the hero escapes. Another trap and how he escapes. And then the villain's going to be winning and the hero's going to be starving. So they're going to have to come up with an even better plan. And then the hero's got to win and make the villain look foolish. So this is what I want you to do today. I'm going to pause your video. Like I said before, you can write out your plan, you can draw out your plan, you can talk to somebody about your plan, but by tomorrow when we start our story, I want you to know exactly what kind of story you're going to be writing, so get your plan ready today. So pause the video now and get yourself ready for your writing tomorrow, and then come back to me at the end so I can go over your CC. Okay, welcome back. I hope you've managed to plan a really, really exciting story. Just to help you to double check that story, you might want to test it out with your family before you start to write it. Can they tell you, is it engaging? Does it make sense? Do exciting things happen? Do they want to carry on and know what happens in the story? So make sure you're sharing that with somebody, and then you're ready to write a really engaging and powerful adventure story tomorrow. And I can't wait to see what they turn out like. They're going to be absolutely super. And I'm going to be writing my story about the larks alongside you, so I'll be there to help you all the way through it. CC for today, we looked at yesterday, remembering that we're on that new topic, which is all about finding out about the water cycle. We've got that essential activity, so in your work packs, there are some links to some videos that tell you all about the water cycle and how it works, so we'd really like it if you could watch a couple of those. And then if you want to do something with that new learning, you've got a science experiment that you could conduct about evaporation. You could make a model or a poster about the water cycle. You could write a story about a water droplet and describe its journey through the water cycle. Or you could do that bit of a YouTuber and make yourself your own video explaining the water cycle to others. But whatever you decide to do today and whichever learning and activities you decide to do, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And we'll be back here with more learning for you tomorrow. Have a great day, guys. Bye.